The hum of the fluorescent lights in the grocery store was almost hypnotic, mingling with the faint squeak of cart wheels and the occasional beep of a checkout scanner. Shelves towered on either side of the aisle, stacked with brightly colored cans and packages promising health and happiness for infants. Emily stood there, motionless, her tired eyes fixed on a single can of baby formula. Her fingers curled around it as though it were the last piece of gold on earth. She lifted it from the shelf with trembling hands, pulling it close to her chest, almost shielding it from the world. For one fleeting second, there was a flicker of relief in her eyes, as though this can might solve the gnawing ache of worry that had plagued her every night for weeks. But the relief faded quickly. She turned the can in her hand and glanced down at the small white price tag. The numbers blurred for a moment, her wary mind struggling to process them. Slowly, she reached into her pocket and pulled out a handful of crumpled bills and coins, smoothing them against her palm. She counted silently, lips moving faintly as her thumb pressed against the edges of the worn bills. The total fell short, not by much, just a few dollars. But for Emily, even a few dollars meant the difference between feeding her son or going without herself. Her chest tightened as she looked at the can again. The formula was what Noah needed. He was only a few months past his 3rd birthday, still small for his age, and his appetite had grown. She'd stretched his meals as best she could, watered down milk, mashed potatoes thinner, turned one apple into 3 snacks. But nothing replaced what this formula could give him. She exhaled shakily, her hand trembling as she slid the can back onto the shelf. It landed with a soft thud, so quiet compared to the storm inside her. Her lips pressed together, and her shoulders sagged with a weight invisible to the bustling strangers around her. To them, she was just another shopper, another face lost in the crowd. No one knew she had spent the last 2 days rationing food, skipping meals so Noah could eat. No one knew her stomach had been gnawing at her all day, not from laziness or neglect, but from sacrifice. At the end of the aisle, a tall man paused mid-step, his polished shoes clicking softly against the floor. Alexander Grant. His sharp suit set him apart in the store. A tailored navy jacket over a crisp white shirt, no tie but still unmistakably expensive. He looked like someone who didn't belong in fluorescent light aisles, but in glossy magazine spreads or boardrooms with panoramic city views. He had been on his way to grab something simple. Bottled water for the gym, perhaps. Yet what he saw rooted him to the spot. He noticed Emily. More specifically, he noticed the way she stood there with that can, the way she counted and recounted her crumpled bills, and the way she finally surrendered, putting it back. To him, money was like air. He had never thought twice about it. If he wanted something, he bought it. If he wanted to help, he wrote checks that carried more zeros than most people ever dreamed of. But standing there, watching this young woman wrestle with something so basic, something so essential, struck him in a way no charity gala speech ever had. Alexander had seen hardship before, but always from a distance, on screens, in glossy proposals, in news articles that painted suffering in neat paragraphs. It was different seeing it raw, in motion, in front of his eyes. Something about her shook him. She didn't cry. She didn't curse the world. She didn't draw attention. She just quietly accepted defeat and walked away, pushing a cart that squeaked with every step, holding only the bare essentials, a loaf of bread, a bag of rice, a pack of diapers. He could have turned away. He could have brushed it off as, one of those things, and gone on with his day. But his eyes followed her. He saw her son, a little boy with wide, innocent eyes, tug at her sleeve. The boy glanced back at the formula shelf longingly and whispered something. Alexander couldn't hear it clearly, but he read the word on the child's lips, milk. Emily leaned down, her face close to her son's, Her voice trembled, just loud enough for Alexander to hear. "Not today, maybe soon." The boy's small shoulders sagged, and he nodded, too young to understand the storm of sacrifice behind her words. Alexander felt something tighten in his chest. He had no children of his own. His relationships had been shallow, his days filled with meetings, deals, and appearances. He had built empires but had never built a home. Yet watching that little boy, and the way his mother bent to comfort him despite her own breaking heart, stirred something inside him. Emily moved toward the checkout, pushing her cart with mechanical steps. Each beep of scanned items echoed louder than it should have, as though the store itself was mocking the gap between what she needed and what she could afford. She handed the cashier her crumpled bills, apologizing softly as she tried to smooth them out. The cashier gave her a tired smile, the kind worn by someone used to seeing stories like this play out too often. Alexander hovered in the background, uncertain. His instincts told him to step forward, to offer help, to solve the problem with the ease of a signature or a credit card swipe. But something stopped him. There was dignity in the way she carried herself, dignity even in her defeat. She wasn't asking. She wasn't begging. She was surviving. As Emily packed her small collection of groceries into a reusable bag, her little boy tugged again at her sleeve. "Mommy, can we have milk tomorrow?" he asked. Her throat tightened. "We'll see," she said, forcing a smile, blinking back the sting in her eyes. She lifted the bag, heavy compared to her small frame, and guided her son toward the exit. Alexander found his feet moving before his mind caught up. He followed, not close enough to alarm her, but not willing to let her vanish into the rain-soaked evening without knowing more. He couldn't explain why. Maybe it was guilt, maybe compassion, maybe something deeper. An instinct he hadn't felt in years. The automatic doors slid open with a rush of damp air, and Emily stepped out into the drizzle, pulling her son close as she adjusted her jacket over him. Alexander stopped just inside the doorway, watching her silhouette blur in the rain. He should have turned back. He had meetings, plans, 100 things to attend to. But his heart had already made the choice his mind couldn't yet articulate. For the first time in his life, Alexander Grant, the untouchable millionaire, felt powerless. And for the first time, he wanted desperately not to be.